Welcome back to another episode of Ballroom Chat, the podcast dedicated to sharing the dance journey. I'm your host, Samantha with Love.Live.Dance. Today on the podcast, we have Ricci-Lee Hotz and Todd Munson. They are out of Denver. They are a professional rhythm couple. Todd is the owner of TM Ballroom Dance Studio, and Ricci-Lee is a registered dietitian. You can find her as Denver's Dancing Dietitian. Together, they not only compete professionally in the rhythm category, but they also compete with students in all styles. And we talked today on the podcast about how to balance ProAm and professional competition, their mindset and philosophy when it comes to preparation for competitions, setting goals and expectations properly, both for their students and for themselves, the importance of finding a good coaching team to support you and guide you, as well as just their take on the rhythm category and how they navigate their own dancing. So please enjoy my conversation with Ricci-Lee and Todd. Well, thank you, Ricci-Lee and Todd, so much for being guests today on the podcast.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
So I like to start off the same way with every guest, or guests in this case, which is if you could tell us a little bit about kind of your dance journey so far, what got you into ballroom dance, and where you are right now.
Awesome. I'll let Todd get started.
Okay, so I started dancing as a teenager. My parents were taking lessons at the local franchise school here, and I would accompany them to their dance lessons every now and then. And being a teenage boy, I was pretty into the female instructors there. So I decided I would sign up, and that was like the entire impetus for me starting dance, and just liked taking lessons and liked dancing and didn't really have anything else I really wanted to do. And so I did their training program and taught there for a while, and managed a little bit, and decided it was time to go out on my own. And I started my own studio, kind of just down the street in Lakewood, Colorado. And I've been doing that since 2009. And for the last 5 years, I've been competing with Ricci-Lee here in professional American rhythm.
Awesome.
So my story is a little bit different, but kind of similar timelines. So I started dancing when I was 16. I was a gymnast for 11 years prior to that. And when I quit gymnastics, I was trying to figure out what to do with myself. So I was a big So You Think You Can Dance fan and saw ballroom dancing and thought it looked super cool. I also had a lot of my former teammates tell me that they really were not impressed with my dance skills. So I kind of wanted to prove them wrong. And so I started taking lessons also at a franchise studio and fell in love with dancing. And from there, I went a little bit of a different route where I participated in collegiate. So I was in the collegiate world for 4 years, as well as doing ProAm as a student for many years there. And then about 9 years into my dance career, I was looking for a professional partner, and we tried out at a competition, and pretty quickly we decided we were a good match for a partnership. And I picked up from Arizona and moved to Colorado, and we've been dancing and competing professional rhythm ever since.
Awesome. So both starting kind of from the ballroom dance world as teenagers in a franchise experience, a little bit collegiate as well, and then ultimately kind of just deciding this is something that we want to do full time in a professional capacity, and kind of making that switch. Were you both only competing, I guess I should say, in rhythm when you were doing your previous experience before turning pro, or were you cross-training in other disciplines as well?
So for me, I competed pro-am in both rhythm and smooth. I didn't really do much Latin and standard when I initially started, just because the area I was in was very rhythm and smooth focused. So I did that, but then I pretty much transitioned to rhythm as I started increasing my level of dancing. So after silver, I kind of switched to just doing rhythm.
Yeah, and then when I was at the franchise school, there was not a very competitive school. So we did just mostly American style, a lot of the nightclub dances. And we would just do like the franchise events. We never really did any NDCA events. So When I broke out on my own, I decided to try to better my dancing by competing, because I knew that was going to sort of motivate me to practice and take it a little more seriously. And I've only ever really competed seriously in American rhythm.
I want to kind of dig a little bit deeper there, Todd. So you have this kind of social experience, you're learning the styles, and then you say, okay, I want to do this on my own and I want to really get the full experience. So let's try this competitive thing and let's focus on rhythm. What was the internal motivation, or was it an external factor for you to say, like, it's time for me to step outside of this comfort zone that I'm in and see what I can do on a larger scale?
Wow. Just ignorance to what it actually probably took at the time, and youth, and just being like, no, I can compete. I'll be fine. And then just jumping into it. And I mean, obviously all competitors have different goals. And I think at that point I was just like, let me just see what it's like. Let me kind of jump into this maybe more independent world of the dancing and the community and meet the other people. And then honestly, not until me and Ricky decided to partner up did it really become more serious. So
early competitive was just like, yeah, let's see what this is like. This looks like fun. Maybe I've got the studio, so I'll take my students and I might as well compete while I'm there.
Yep, exactly right.
I understand that. I feel that. And then Ricky, how much of your, Ricci-Lee, how much of your prior gymnastics experience, was that competitive or was that more just exercise? And if it was competitive, do you feel like there was a link to then going into collegiate and pro-am pretty early in your dance career?
Yeah. So for me, being a competitive gymnast, so I was competitive to a point where I was training up to like there's 10 levels, I guess you could say. I was training level 9 when I quit gymnastics. So I was in that track where I was like, well, maybe I'll compete either in college, or at one point in time, I was aiming for the Olympics, like most young competitive gymnasts. But then I realized, just based on where I was at in the process and my timeline, that it just wasn't going to be my path. And so when I went into dancing, I've always had that competitive spirit. So for me, just dancing for fun only took me so far, where I was kind of like, well, I really enjoy dancing, but I need that extra oomph of competition. So for me, the competitive side was very much like, I want to be the best possible dancer I can be. I want to beat everyone. And that was kind of where I started with that competitive mindset.
So, obviously I have watched you guys dance for a little while now, and I think you're phenomenal rhythm dancers. Is the goal, I guess I'll ask Todd this first, has the goal shifted from let's go out there and have fun to like, no, let's actually do this full steam and see how far we can get?
Yes. Like I would say, like when I decided to partner with Ricci-Lee, that's when it got more serious. Because it was a more of a commitment. Like she was moving to Colorado. We were doing this together. She was going to work at the studio. And so it became more serious. I mean, it's still maybe fun is an interesting word to use sometimes, but sort of the drive is what kind of keeps me going, and seeing progress and working on my dancing, even through frustrations and stuff, is really what's important to me right now. And yeah, it's fun in an interesting way.
I feel like fun in the dance world is like equal parts, I'm really enjoying this, and also I'm telling myself that I'm really enjoying this.
Absolutely.
Right.
Everybody else says it's fun, so maybe it is fun, right?
Yeah. Well, and I think there's a certain amount of like, I don't know if it's masochism or sadism, but it's like I enjoy pushing through the pain. And I enjoy trying to see how far I can go, and then pushing it a little bit farther to see, okay, what am I capable of at the end of the day?
Yeah, I was impressed when you guys came to our studio and you were practicing before Colorado Star Ball. I was like, wow, they're here for hours and hours practicing. I was pretty impressed with that. So.
Well, I mean, for context, we had to, because we hadn't seen each other in a month.
Yep.
I was coming off of like a 2-week long head cold, so I hadn't danced in 2.5 weeks. And, I want to get your opinion on this. I feel like everyone freaks out about how intense Denver is going to be if you're not from Denver. They're like, be careful of the altitude. You got to come in like 24 hours early and get ready for the altitude. Do you notice that when you go to places other than Denver, that like your stamina or your cardio is a little bit better? Or do you feel like people are just freaking out over nothing?
I mean, I definitely feel like when people come here, they do feel it, breathing wise. You can see after a round, a couple that maybe would come off the floor being like, okay, I'm good normally. Or it's like, oh, wow, I'm breathing heavy. But I would say for us, in certain situations, we can feel the benefit, but in places where it's still super like humid and has that kind of wet climate, it still feels like a different sort of challenge, I would say, in terms of endurance.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I want to talk a little bit about competing both pro-am and pro. How do you find the balance between, at a competition, I guess I should say, how do you balance focusing on your students and making sure your students are having a fantastic experience, but then also making sure that you're ready at, 8, 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night to go out and give 100% of your best performance?
So I'll let Todd go because he has more pro-am students than I do. I'm getting into that world, but he definitely has had to work that balance a little more. We do work together with all of our students, but I think he has a little more of a experience, I would say, in that realm.
Yeah, I mean, when you're going to these competitions, dancing pro-am, and you're dancing hundreds of entries or not even hundreds, like it doesn't matter how many, that is the priority. You're waking up at, if you're a male competitor, not as early because you just slick your hair back and put on some clothes and off you go. But you're there and you have to be present and that is what the priority is. Because ultimately, this is what keeps the community that I'm building happy as my students are going and they're happy and they're telling everybody else that it's a super good experience. And, it is competitive. So it's very easy to get like, come on, you can do this. Like, let's go. Like, we're here to have fun / win. So, and then, we have to communicate clearly to the students that, all right, your last entry is done. We've danced, we've gotten your awards. I am switching gears entirely to pro mode, and they understand, and the expectations are set that I'm not going to go to dinner with you. I can't go have drinks with you after you're done dancing. I have to like refocus and put myself in the different mindset. I have to feel what my partner feels like after what my pro-am students feel like. I have to change my attitude a little bit. Like it's a little bit more selfish. Now it's for me. And there's just that real clear compartmentalization, I think. And then the other thing that's really helpful is Ricky's very good about always being there for the students when I'm out there on the floor, making sure that I know where I need to be if I'm doing multiple entries in a row and I have multiple students, and that she's sort of managing their feelings and emotions when I can't necessarily be there. So they know that we're all kind of working together. And then they also, the students tend to like to watch us dance and want to see us do well. So they also understand kind of that process. And I would say the easiest transition is when you have bronze students and they're done hours before the pros go. And the open level students is a little bit trickier because sometimes you're running right off the floor and transitioning right into pro. And it's kind of just, figuring that out.
So I think on my side, it is a little bit different because like Todd said, as a girl, we have to get up earlier to get ready. Luckily, with my short hair, I don't have quite as much process there, but normally I prefer to get, hair or makeup appointments depending on, what I'm doing to get ready. And for me, that decreases stress in getting ready. I'm not trying to be a perfectionist and say, okay, is that eye even to that eye? It's just like, okay, do this for me so I can relax and, get organized. But so normally, with pro-am, especially bronze, getting up at 4 a.m. and then dancing at 11 p.m. can be challenging. But I would say it's also kind of a similar experience, so that when my students are dancing, the focus is on them. I'm not thinking about, okay, I have to dance pro tonight. at 11 o'clock, I'm thinking about, okay, how am I going to help my student dance the best that they can dance? And how am I going to make sure that Todd's students are feeling good and they're feeling mentally set and ready to go? And then once we're done with Pro-Am, also having that shift of mindset of, okay, great job. Like, we really appreciate what you guys did and we're proud of what the work that you've put on the floor. And now it's time for us to go and prepare. So I think something that's been super important about that is we do set those boundaries in advance with our students. So we're not just going to the competition and them expecting one thing. And then all of a sudden we're like, okay, you're done dancing, bye. We're very much like, okay, this is the day that we're going to do dinner with you, or this is when we're going to do something special. And these are the times that we have to set aside for our own practice and our own preparation to make sure that we're at our best when we dance professionally.
Well, and I love the fact that you seem like you're doing this as a team. And I think that's super important. For our listeners, we just came off of a wonderful conversation with Ennio and Terrell about that same concept about teaching and coaching and working as a team. So having that balance where, you know, when Todd's on the floor, Ricci-Lee, you can kind of be with the students. And then when you're on the floor, Todd, you can be supporting her and being with the students, so that there is a consistency there for your clientele, but also that important setting of the boundary and setting expectations and being like, this is your time and this is my time, and we have to make a clear separation. What's the recovery process like after a big competition if you have like hundreds of Pro-Am entries and you're dancing Rising Star and Open in the evening?
Well, the recovery process.
He doesn't have much of one.
I don't. I usually come back home and have family duties and stuff. So I think, you know, when you get to the point and you're dancing that much, you're just conditioned and you get used to it. And sometimes when you're at competitions and you're there all day, it's easier to dance more than it is to dance less. Mm-hmm. It keeps your body moving. It keeps everything kind of like loose and going. And then when you know, hopefully you have enough time on the dance floor at the studio that, you know, you're used to being on your feet enough. And I don't know. Yeah. And you just know that next week there's another competition, 2 weeks there's another competition, your coach is coming into town, you're going to your coach. So there's always that kind of grind. So.
And I think for me, I, in other ways, have a little bit more freedom. So if we get back, for example, on a Sunday morning, for me, I'm definitely that person that takes the day to just sleep and chill and let my body do what it needs to do. And then the next day get back to whether it's a workout or getting prepared for the week or whatever it is. And we really do our best not to like miss practices for recovery. It's more so just recover with the time that we have. And then when we have a planned practice, we do what we need to do to get back on the floor and make that training happen.
Sure. No, absolutely. I feel like even taking an hour or two after an extensive event to just be like, okay, let me bring everything back down. Let me like refocus and reset, and then hit the floor the next day kind of feeling like, okay, I know what I need to do and I know what I need to work on, and I'm back in the right mental place and emotional place to be like, okay, let's put my body back to work. How much, kind of pivoting to the other side of your life, Ricci-Lee, how much of diet and nutrition has become, I mean, obviously as a registered dietitian, it's become part of your life. But how do you feel like that's impacted your training regimen? And is that something that is very like set prescribed where you're like, this is the diet plan that I stick to, and this is what I have to stay with, even if I'm traveling or visiting family or on the holidays or other things are going on in life?
Yeah. So for me, the nutrition side of the work I work with a lot of different types of clientele. So I work with eating disorders, as well as dancers, as well as weight management and all other medical conditions. So I work with a bunch of different realms. And so for myself, because of especially the work that I've done with eating disorders and performance and athletics, is, you know, while there is a structure to what I do, like you can ask Todd, I'm pretty straightforward in how I eat at a competition. I kind of have my routine. And when I don't have my routine, I always get a little bit mentally whacked out about it. But for me, I'm very much like, yes, you can be flexible with food, but ultimately the goal is to fuel my body appropriately for what I'm trying to achieve and what I'm trying to do. And then, the occasional, yeah, you're at an after party and the food option that you can eat is French fries. I'm going to have some French fries. I'm not going to say, no, I can't have those because I need to look or feel a certain way.
Yeah. And I like the fact that you said, the goal is to fuel your body. I feel like, especially for dancers that maybe did have gymnastics growing up or did have, ballet or were in dance programs very young, that eating disorder, body image thing is something that a lot of us struggle with. Even those that are older in life, maybe they're looking at the competition floor and saying, I don't look like that. And then you put a lot of guilt associated with that. So you mentioned, you have a regimen. So is that something where you are limiting calories or focusing on certain food groups, or is it really more tailored to, okay, this is what's going to be the best nutrition for what I need to do during the day?
So for me, I try to do my best to practice what I preach. For example, like I do have a lot of clients who are in the competitive, a lot of them are ProAm students. So students across the country that are super competitive and they're out there doing over 100 entries. I'm helping them figure out how to fuel their body for competitions. And I like to try and stay with as much of a similar process as I can. For me at an event, generally I'm eating lighter things. Like I'm still going to eat. For me, my biggest focus is not necessarily calories, but it's food group balance, I would say, and moderation of the different things I'm having. So knowing that, for example, my pre-dancing meal is going to be sushi every time, because I know it doesn't make me feel bloated. It doesn't make me feel uncomfortable. And I'm getting my carbs for immediate energy. I'm getting a good lean protein, and I'm feeling like I'm ready to go. But during the day, I don't necessarily always have the capacity to eat as timed or as balanced as I'd like to. So I try and utilize things like protein bars, or if I do have access to a meal, then I do like to get something light and fresh that makes me feel good, but also is giving me energy. So I really try and avoid that concept of calorie restriction when I'm going into dancing, because I know ultimately, even if I do that to myself, I'm not going to have the energy I need to put out that solid full round or 2 or 3 rounds on the pro floor.
Yeah. And it's definitely both like setting a schedule for yourself and setting a regimen, but also then there's not only the food and fuel component, there's also the mental component and the emotional component. Right. Todd, I imagine since you have a lot of ProAm students, they tend to be a little bit older, that you have more of the therapist role when it comes to like modulating your students' emotions and kind of mental preparedness. Can you talk a little bit about how that feels and kind of what your process is?
Well, I get pretty competitive out there, so sometimes I don't play the therapist mode at all or poorly. And it depends on the student, if they're a highly competitive student versus somebody who's trying it out for the first couple times. And again, I think most of what I try to do is manage expectations and make sure that expectations are hopefully met and exceeded on everybody's part, and nobody's feeling basically like let down for any reason. I mean, obviously, like we have no control really over how we place per se, but as long as they felt like they did well, they were prepared, they didn't feel rushed, they didn't feel abandoned, right? Like that's another big thing for me. Then everything else I usually just sort of say, go talk to Ricky.
And so with that, I would say maybe I'm the one that plays a little more of the therapist role.
Yeah.
A lot of the time we do kind of set those standards where we want our students to do so well, and we're so invested in every single one of them as an individual that sometimes you can get worked up and you're like, I know you can dance better than this. Like, let's make it happen. And maybe they're getting worked up too. And so I think having that other person to sometimes say, hey, can you talk to them and kind of see where their head's at and help support them through this, I think is important. And even on the opposite end, sometimes, if I'm struggling with my students at that moment, I'll be like, hey, Todd, can you have a quick conversation with them from a guy's perspective? What's going to make you feel good out there? And so I think having that role of being able to separate from the immediate involvement, I would say, and have someone that can kind of be that outside perspective of, you've got this, you can do this, where can I support you? And I think that kind of gives us that ability to help keep our students happy, even if they're maybe having a more challenging competition for them.
Yeah. And how much of that happens in the studio before the event itself or after the event is kind of like a preset versus a debrief?
I mean, I feel like I'll see how Todd manages it sometimes. And a lot of the time before the competition, also, it's that kind of like, let's go, let's make this happen. But he's also like, we're training to do what we can do. And once we've got that, that's all you can do, right? You're not going to learn something new when you're on the competition floor. Yeah. So whatever we can put out here in practice is what we're going to put on the competition floor. And so I think he does a pretty good job of supporting his students there. If they are ever feeling off, then that is always where I come in, where, if he's just like, man, like, I feel like they're not in the right headspace, Ricky, can you talk to them? And I'll always make time to sit down with them at the studio or text them or whatever works best to just be able to say, hey, how are you feeling? What can we do to make sure that you feel really good? And then after a competition, I feel like both of us tend to go through kind of that sit down, at least for a few minutes after a competition back at the studio, to say, how did you feel that went? What did you feel good about? What do you feel like, you'd like more work on? And then we also provide our feedback to them as well to kind of keep that process moving forward, so that we're all kind of checked in with each other, as opposed to us assuming one thing, them assuming something else, and then being on separate pages.
Yeah, and I think it's maybe an important thing that we probably don't talk to our students about, but most ProAm students should probably know, like, if their teachers are doing the ProAm job and they're dedicated to ProAm, they're agonizing and they're celebrating, and we're gonna go to the room, and in the elevator on the way up to the room, we're gonna be like, oh my God, my student was like so amazing today. She did this, and then we'll be like, and I'll be like, if my student doesn't hold her arm up in this waltz for this next round, people are going to die, right? So, but it's like kind of like we're like constantly like checking in with like, all right, did it look good? Because it felt kind of weird, or it felt amazing. Did it look kind of weird? Mm-hmm. And like, oh my God, I'm surprised that she did this, or whatever this is. Like, we are like spending a lot of our time off of the dance floor, like thinking about the dance floor and like what everybody's doing and producing and how they're feeling. So like, we don't really necessarily communicate that to our students, right, but I think it's an important thing for like the ProAm students to know that the ProAm teachers are really, really concerned about it and really think about it a lot. So, and we're not unique in that, I don't think. I think there's a lot of very, very good teachers that put the mental effort into that. So
yeah.
Definitely.
And I think that is a super important thing that he said, is a lot of the time we don't share that with our students. We're not going to tell them we're spending hours after you're done dancing, brainstorming, okay, what can we do to make you better, or celebrating that they had a great opportunity, a great performance that day. And, just knowing that we aren't just there leaving them and then going and doing our thing, but we really are committed to their journey and their process.
Absolutely. And I think that mindset goes for competition students, absolutely, but also to our social students, our hobby students, our wedding clients. If we come out of a lesson and they've made progress, it's like, yes, oh my gosh, we had a breakthrough. I'm so proud of them. They're doing awesome. And if we had a frustrating lesson, it's like, I've somehow let you down. I haven't done my part as a teacher to like break through this next level. So we do take a lot of that home with us, and we do think about it and figure out, okay, how can I improve this for next time? Maybe I can say this thing differently and maybe that'll work in the next lesson, or I love their progress. Now let me celebrate it, and then let me bump the bar up the next level and like see if we can get to that next step.
Exactly.
So who do you have in your lives that is that person for the two of you as a pro couple? Who do you have that can be your therapist, that can be the mediator, that can kind of set the level that you're wanting to rise to?
I'll take this first. We obviously have our coaches, and we love and adore our coaches, and we have a very main coach who basically is our technical dancer, and he's our manager on our journey. Like, he's in charge of like the look, the dresses, the outfitting, what competitions we should be going to, all of that. And he's the one that will, in the same conversation, tell us that we absolutely know nothing, and then be like, no, but you guys can do this, you're amazing. Like, okay, we're on a journey now, and okay, I'm not sure where I'm at, but I got you. And like, we trust each other. And then his partner is also like amazing, and we know that like when we're having a little issue, we can talk to him, and that's amazing. But on the personal side, I think, my wife is also like, I can like bounce things off of her, and she obviously knows Ricky super well, so she can be like, Todd, you need to like cool your jets on this, or like she'll be like, well, Ricky needs to blah blah blah, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then another great thing too with competing a lot with students is the students are kind of part of that too, so they can kind of like help. They can see when we're upset, or they can see when we're happy. And all of our students are super smart. They're very accomplished. They're in a place where they can like do something leisurely, like as much as they want, and they have their life experiences, and they're usually older than us, so they can kind of help us through it too. So it really is a team, and it kind of takes a village sometimes to keep us all on track. So
definitely. And I think we're lucky to have such a dedicated coaching team, basically. And that's something that I know some pros don't always get. A lot of the time we jump around from coach to coach, and we're just trying to find our support system. And we have a great support system there. And we also, like Todd said, both have someone that we can come home to and just say, I'm frustrated. I don't know what to do, how to manage this, and be able to kind of bounce those ideas off, so that when we come back together, we're like, okay, like, let's reset, let's figure out how we're going to make this happen, and let's push forward. And then I think also, as Todd said, our students are pretty intuitive and pretty insightful. So if we are having a challenging time or anything like that, they're always open to just kind of be there for us as a mental support, which is great.
Students are also great too, because no matter how bad you do, they just think you're the best. And so you come off the floor and you're like, woof. And they're like, it was awesome, and you guys are going to be the winners. And we're like, okay.
Thank you.
I love that. So
I have a love-hate relationship with that, because part of me is like, I appreciate the support and the unwavering like trust and faith that students have in you. But at the same time, I'm like, no, I know that didn't look as good as the other couples on the floor.
Yes.
And we do have one student that we can generally trust to be pretty real with us, which is kind of nice, because they come to all the different events with us. So they've seen us enough, and they've been exposed enough to be able to say, well, I think you're maybe like, this dance was good, this dance not as good. And we're like, okay, we'll take your opinion, we appreciate it.
Yeah. So what is, obviously the focus is dancing the best you can dance and improving every time and seeing how far you can go. But for the two of you, are you trying to tell a certain story with your dancing? Are you exploring different colors or variations of your dancing as a couple? What is the journey looking like right now for you?
So for us, it's kind of an interesting journey, because we're both, I would say, very analytically minded people. And so we're very much like, okay, let's make the technique the best we can make it. And that's always where both of us start. We're like, let's be technically as great as we can possibly be. And then I would say on kind of the emotional story side, that's something where, as you can see by his face, can be a little bit of a challenge. So for us, we're very good at having someone tell us what to do and making it happen. But when it comes to having your own feeling and kind of touching in with that own experience of, this is what I need to do to create a feeling or an emotion, or that's something that I think we're definitely trying to tap into, but I think is maybe one of our weaker sides, where maybe you see some other competitors that's like the thing that they get, but maybe the technique is not the strongest aspect. And so for us, we kind of have that technical foundation and we're continuing to grow and build that, but we also, are working to explore that emotional story connection side of our dancing.
Yeah. Because we're just coming off of the conversation with Tony Nunez about authenticity in dancing and exploring different relationships and portraying that. Obviously, the two of you are not together. You have your own relationships. So are you trying to portray in like a rumba or a bolero that you are a couple and it's acting, or are you trying to navigate the fact that it is a friendship and a business partnership and kind of coloring within different lines, so to speak?
I think that can sometimes be the challenge, where we are trying, in the world of dance, you have to, in my perspective, need to provide what the most amount of people want to see. And as much as you can kind of focus on what your own authentic self is, and it would be great if all we did was express authenticity, in some of those dances there is a theme. When you're dancing a bolero, it's not, hey, we're friends, let's go have a drink. It's a romantic dance and a romantic experience. So it is tapping into, maybe instead of it being that thought process of we're trying to pretend that we have this emotional connection between us, maybe utilizing emotional connections we have in other aspects of our life to try and present that within working with each other. So it's not necessarily a fake experience, but it's taking outside experiences to create the best we can, a real experience within that dancing, which I think can be a challenge. But when you see a couple who loves each other dancing together and they're not fighting, you can generally see that. Whereas some of those couples that are in a relationship, when they're dancing together, when they're not happy with each other because they're not portraying that same emotional connection. So I think we can have some positives and some negatives in that end, where because we're not actually in that relationship, it might be easier to take those outside experiences and portray them on the floor than someone who's really in it with the person that they're dancing with.
Yeah, having a little bit of a barrier or a separation from what you're actually feeling for the other person.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with all that. I think the hardest part for my life is probably like that emotional expression side of things, because I'm pretty closed off about what I feel about most things. So
we'll call it stoic.
Stoic, yeah. So I don't let a lot of people like know what's going on very well. And when somebody asks me, so what are you trying to do here? I'm like, I'm trying to win cha-cha. That's what I'm trying to do. Like, no, it needs to be more. And like, I definitely like know that that's the super like weak, if non-existent spot in my dancing. Along with all the technical things we're always trying to make better, right? There's always like the very like material conditions of dance and like the tangible things of dance that are, you can train and work for and try to be faster or slower or more clear with direction. And then just that emotional connection to the audience too, even, my God, that's the hardest thing. I'm just, because it's easy to get it's easy for me to get distracted by the audience too. Like, oh, look, they're looking at me. Oh, great. So that is definitely like my weak point. So
yeah, walk, talk, and chew bubble gum. Okay, I've got to remember my choreo. I have to remember my technique. I have to look a certain way. I have to act a certain way. I need to engage with the audience, but not so much that I lose where I'm at the dance. And yeah, a lot of things that you're juggling at once when you're on the competition floor. Todd, I'm gonna go full like therapist mode just for a second, if that's all right. So if I'm looking at, okay, you've got this background in more American styles. Typically we think of American as a 9-dance experience with rhythm and smooth. Do you think the fact that you are not as comfortable going there emotionally or thinking about the story of the dance led you to rhythm versus smooth. Not saying that rhythm is less storytelling, but you can kind of get away with not focusing on that as much in dances like cha-cha and swing and mambo, as opposed to 4 very story focused dances and smooth, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, so not to be too contentious maybe, but like I do like all the dances. I enjoy, like when I'm dancing them, I enjoy them. Sometimes it takes me a little bit of like, all right, today I got to get my jive going, and I'm like, once the engine's going, I'm like, okay, I like jive. But you know, if I'm at home thinking about having to do jive, I'm like, oh no, I have to do jive today, as an example. So I do like all the dances and I enjoy all the dances, but in general, I enjoy the music a lot more for American rhythm. Like a cha-cha is gonna do more for me than a waltz, right? And I mean, and then you know, bolero music's not my favorite, right? So that's sort of where I get my like feelings of like smooth dancing out in the rhythm field. But I think a lot of it has to do with music. I think a lot of it has to do with what I feel like I'm more interested in working at a pro level on is more of like the rhythm type stuff than the smooth type stuff. So, but some of my favorite dancers are smooth dancers. So I mean, or standard dancers, right? So some of the people I watch the most aren't the rhythm dancers, they're every other style. Or they're nightclub dancers. Sometimes you see somebody do some amazing thing and hustle and you're like, well, how can I do that in what I'm trying to do? So I try to look at everything, but for my own personal body and mentality and where I think I could have like done the most, I thought rhythm was the best track for me.
And Ricci-Lee, how about you?
How was that? Good?
No, that was awesome. That was awesome.
Okay.
Yeah. Ricci-Lee, how about you? So obviously you're also dancing in all of the styles, but you've chosen to focus on rhythm. Is it the music? Is it the movement? Is it the speed?
It's kind of a mix of a few different things. I know maybe fortunately or unfortunately, when I was a bit younger in my dancing career, I kind of got that feedback of, well, you're short, you're kind of stocky, smooth is not necessarily where your body fits in. And so that was something that I definitely took to heart, which maybe I didn't need to, but it was something where I liked the feeling of smooth. I like that different type of movement, but I was kind of pushed away from it to some extent, I would say. And so, you know, I also have a similar feeling about the music, where for me, smooth music is not as enticing as rhythm music, but, you know, there is such a great quality to smooth. So it's something that, you know, I wouldn't ever be opposed to exploring potentially in the future. Although sometimes as a short person, you look at that smooth floor and you see those arms flying everywhere and you're like, I'm just going to get knocked out if I go out on that floor. But for me, I really have always loved kind of what the feeling of rhythm presents, you know, because it has that cheekiness, that musicality to a point where you can work on such tiny little technical aspects and it's can provide such a compact internal response that then presents something so large. So I think that is kind of one of the things that's enticing about rhythm. And I do like the emotion that rhythm presents. So I feel like it's something different than smooth, where we have maybe more of a range of story than you might find in smooth. So coming from that kind of cheekiness of cha-cha to that romance of bolero to that like playful, fun aspect of a swing or a mambo. And I like the challenge, I would say, of kind of transitioning through all of those different emotions and experiences.
Yeah, definitely. I would agree with you that I feel like rhythm and Latin have a much broader range of story that you're trying to tell versus smooth and standard. I think smooth, it's like very clear. Everyone has universally agreed, like, this is what a waltz should be and this is what a tango should be. Whereas I feel like you've got a little bit more room to play with, like, what do you want your swing to be? What do you want the story of your mambo to be? Because it hasn't been as codified in American rhythm.
Yeah. And I think that that's something that's also, I mean, I guess branching out a little bit, it can be a great thing about rhythm, but also a challenge, because even Latin, I mean, there's expectations, you know, we're like, this is what Latin should look like. Whereas when we come to rhythm, depending on who you ask, they're going to tell you what they think rhythm should look like. Someone wants rhythm to just be good dancing. Someone wants rhythm to be authentically rhythm with bent knee action and, you know, more authentic rhythm movements. Whereas some people will say they want that, but then when you look at judging or marks, they really just want the best possible dancing, what's going to create the best speed, what's going to create the best movement. So I think that's a challenge of the rhythm field, especially as more Latin couples move over to the rhythm field, is kind of understanding what the expectation is as a rhythm dancer from the most amount of people, because you're never going to please everyone. So what can we do to make sure that we are presenting what is wanted by the majority?
Well, and I want to go a little bit farther with that too, because I think, to your point, rhythm is still sort of this style that is finding its way. And to your point, depending on who you ask, it can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people, and the expectations can be different. So for a couple who has said technique first, storytelling second, where the technique is a little, I mean, there's technique, but it's ever changing and ever growing. I know woman to woman, 2.5 inch heels to 3 inch heels. There's a changing technique with American rhythm because a lot of older dancers are now having some foot issues based on what was taught previously about rhythm technique. So how do you navigate what the judging panel wants to see, what your coach wants to see, and what feels good for your body?
I think that that's an ever-changing challenge. You know, I think for us, our priority is kind of like, we chose the coach and the coaching team that we work with for a reason. So our focus is to trust them and their opinion to get us as far as possible, as well as obviously doing the work to get there. So I think being able to kind of say, we're trusting that this is the route that we're going to go with our dancing, and we're taking that on, and hopefully that will create the results that we're looking for, I think is maybe our biggest priority. It can be a challenge for, you know, your own body, I think sometimes as well. You know, I think we've both had our fair share of body challenges, but I think it's something where it's learning both on the physical, like keeping yourself healthy side, and where you're going to just push past that, as well as being able to say what looks good on my body. And I think that taking a coach that has enough invested in you to be able to say, I'm going to push you in this realm, but based on your body, I think maybe we'll bring in this person to help give you guidance to adjust your movement and adjust your style to provide what looks best on you, I think is something that can be super helpful. And that's why sometimes, you know, having someone that is connected in those ways, that cares about what you do and cares about you as an authentic dancer, on top of just what dancing should be, I think is really important, and something that we've been lucky enough to find and begin to really work on and process.
Yeah, I think it's, as far as that is concerned, when you're dancing something well and you're dancing something right, you're probably less prone to injury, right? If your weight transfers are appropriate and you're using appropriate ranges of motion, you're connecting properly, you're standing up properly, you're engaging core, whatever it is, you're probably going to avoid most injury, right? And obviously we lose our balance, we twist our ankles. I mean, that's life. But and I think the coaches in general, I think a lot of coaches too are trying to keep in mind, like, what's kinesthetic, what is the human body really designed to do? Like, what is this muscle gonna do? Like, are we trying to put our hip way out to the side, or is that just gonna create issues? And is it like create imbalance, and does it put us on weird parts of our feet and it affects our direction and then affects our balance? And or are we trying to like be very clear about where our weight is, how we're managing that? And I think a lot of coaches, I mean, not just our coach, but I see a lot of people working on the same things. And when I hear lectures and I hear your interviews with people, they're concerned about good dancing, but longevity in good dancing too, and not just like, not like other professional sports where, you know, you're going to be a football player, you can have 2 good years maybe before you're on injured reserve, right? So and I think that's a really nice thing that the industry is trying to do in general. And, you know, I think you start to see champion dancers demonstrating that, not like a facade, if that makes sense.
No, absolutely. I think it goes back to kind of a passing comment that you made earlier, Todd, which was, okay, that looked good, but it didn't feel right, or that felt right, did it look weird? Like you have to chase the feeling in your body of like, okay, this feels good. Now, does it match the look that I'm trying to get to? And if I'm getting the look, but it's not feeling right, well, that's your body telling you something's wrong. And if it feels good, but it's not the look that you're going for, it's like, okay, how far can I push this to get the look that I want without sacrificing the kinesthetic balance that I've kind of found?
Yeah. And I think that's where, you know, the coaches can really help you. And, you know, the coaches will be, you know, you can say like, wow, this hurts, or like, I don't understand how to get my body to do this. And, you know, they'll help you work through it. Or, you know, sometimes we just need to practice. Sometimes you just need to condition your body to build that muscle that's going to do the right thing, or be able to keep your core while you're trying to do other things, right? So, and sometimes they're like, no, this is right, and it will be fine. You're not going to hurt yourself. You just need to practice and put in the time. So, yeah. And then, you know, we're lucky as guys, we don't have to dance in high heels and stuff like that. So good on you.
But you still have the Cuban heels, which a lot of like first time male dancers totally freak out about. And it's like, oh, it pushes your weight a little bit more towards the front of the foot. There's a reason why the guys are wearing Cuban heels when they're dancing. There's a purpose. We promise there's a purpose.
Exactly.
So I want to, if we can, I would love for you to provide a specific kind of experience or situation, just for our listeners to have a little bit more context of like, okay, I have a coaching team behind me that I trust implicitly. Like I know that they have my best interests at heart. I've worked with them long enough to really trust their voice and experience, but they're asking me to do this move or this series of movements, and it just is not clicking, or it's not feeling right. And I'm worried that we're at the point where I need to say no versus, okay, I'm going to trust them. I'm going to keep working through it. And suddenly it clicks and it's like, aha, I see the other side of the challenge.
So I would say with our current setup that we have, I feel like we tend to both be people, and correct me if I'm wrong, but that are going to push ourselves to do it to the point, like if there's any possibility of us making it happen, we're going to push. I think the nice thing about our coaching team is that they're also willing to see, you know, maybe this isn't the best move for you, or maybe this isn't the best thing for you. So they're also willing to help us draw that line. I feel like, you know, if it's something where we feel like, you know, say they told Todd to do a knee spin and stand back up, he's probably going to tell them, hey, I know my knees are not going to like that. You know, I'd prefer not to, if there's something we can do to create as good of an effect without doing that type of movement. So I think if we feel we absolutely need to kind of set that boundary of like, my body's not going to do that, we will. And I think we're both kind of good at knowing what that max point is, but we haven't really had to do that without our coach kind of making making that call first, I would say. So we've been lucky in that experience where our coaches are intuitive in that way, where they're really paying attention to what we're capable of, and we're going to push ourselves to get there as much as possible. And if it's something that's just not the right fit, them as well as us are going to make that call to shift something and make that change.
Yeah,
I'd agree with that.
I think that really speaks to the fact that you have found yourselves, I mean, it's clear from the conversation that we've had, you've found someone from a coaching perspective that is right there with you. And I think that's incredibly special, and I'm incredibly jealous of that. I think that's awesome. And I think in talking with other professionals, like, that is the key, right? Regardless of what level you're at, if you're an amateur couple, if you're training in ProAm, if you're a professional trying to make, you know, your pro name, finding coaches and surrounding yourself with people where you're like, I know that they are putting me first. It's not just a transactional relationship. Like, they have my best interests, and I can trust them to say, like, this is too far, or you can go a little bit farther.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like, everybody has a coach they're going to click with, right? So like, and all of my coaches I've had in the past, I like, and I've learned a lot of stuff from them, and I feel like I'm on super good terms with them. And, you know, I think they also were competitors at one point, and they're like, realize like, no, sometimes you just need a change, or sometimes, you know, there's, you know, nothing changes if nothing changes, right? Like, not to use that sort of basic statement, but, and then finding the coaches that can motivate you, and then also give you like your material needs. Like, great, like, yes, we're talking about feelings, but I'm not sure how to make more speed happen, or I watch the videos and like, I just don't like what I see. And so there's lots of different aspects, and like, you know, a coach needs, like, our coaches are super good because we're like, we're not sure what to do with you guys here. You're going to work with this coach now for like these 3 lessons. Mm-hmm. And then generally our coaches attend those lessons with us. Mm-hmm. So that way the 2 coaches can talk and help us all figure it out. So and it took a long time for us to find this team, right? It's not, you know, and
right. And I think the important thing that Todd was kind of mentioning there is that we've had a variety of coaches throughout our professional partnership, and they've all given us something that was crucial as part of our journey. So if we hadn't worked with some of our previous coaches, maybe our current coaching team wouldn't be the right fit for us. So I think the fact that we've kind of gone through that journey of these coaches are the right coaches for us in this time, and now we maybe need something different to create different motivation, or to create a different switch in the way that we're approaching our dancing, I think has been an important part of our journey. Because I think if we just started with this coaching team, we may have not been ready for that. Mm-hmm. And so I think that we needed those different things at the different stages in our dancing.
Yeah. You don't know what you don't know, and you're not ready for the information until you're ready for it.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. Awesome. And I'm sure that you both play that role then for your students, right? When Christian and I were in the studio ahead of Colorado Star Ball, you had coaches in, so it's one of those where like, okay, I can take you to this point, and then we're struggling on this level, so who can I bring in to take you to that next point? Or I don't really know what to do with this choreography, so let me bring in outside help, and we can learn together from someone else's experience point.
Yeah. And I think I think one of the greatest things about doing coachings with your students, and not just on a professional level, is that you're giving a different insight to your students, but also in a selfish way, I would say it's helping you develop as a teacher as well as a dancer to be able to say, well, I never thought about doing that in that way. Now I can apply that to my students, which I can also then apply to my own dancing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And the nice thing with the higher level students especially is it's interesting to see when the coach tends to turn their instruction more towards what the instructor is possibly lacking in or needs a little bit more direction with. And ultimately the students, when they get to that level, can understand that that's only going to make their dancing better. right? Because I mean, if any of the three of us or any of the other interviews you've done, these people think they know everything, then, you know, like it's tough to learn. And none of us know that. We're like, no, you can fix me. Like, if my alignments are wrong and you need me to go here or whatever, this is good. I need to know this. So and the students understand that, and it's really, really nice that they can be a part of that too.
Absolutely. Because at the end of the day, what we do is a partnership, right? Ballroom dancing is a 50-50 partnership. That doesn't mean we're always 50-50. Sometimes we're, 70-30 or 60-40, but it takes sometimes that third set of eyes to be like, okay, I know this is about the student, but I need you to do this differently so that your student can do the thing that you're trying to get the student to do.
Exactly.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Well, is there anything else that you guys would like to share with our listeners? Anything else that you want to kind of put in their brains as they go throughout the rest of their week?
Do you have anything?
No, if you're ever in Colorado, come visit us. That we'd love to have anybody here at the studio, whether it's to practice before a competition or come to one of our parties on our Friday nights. And I always like meeting people in the community. So.
And I can say for certain
I would say
that
on
it's
my
a very
end,
nice studio.
Awesome. And then on my end, I would say, like, for me, I just, as someone who does kind of have that other field that I have in my life as a nutrition, like, professional and a dietitian, I think just knowing as a dancer that there are those aspects, even as a ProAm student, that a lot of people do get into their heads about maybe not looking the right way or feeling the right way or fueling their body properly. And just knowing that the dance community, while it can be challenging, first and foremost is making sure that you're treating your body with respect and care so that you're giving your body what it needs. Because if you don't do that just to look a certain way, then it can be a detriment to your dancing and your movement and your ability to do what you want to do. So I think, yes, we want to look a certain way or we want to feel a certain way on the floor, but first and foremost, you need to take care of your body. And if that helps you get to the way you look, great, but don't sacrifice the way that you need to take care of yourself in order to get there.
Absolutely. Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much, Ricci-Lee and Todd, for being guests on today's podcast.
Thank you. I really appreciate your podcast. I think it's amazing what you're doing. So
thank you. Thank you once again to Ricci-Lee and Todd for being guests on today's episode. If you want to follow their dance journey or find out more about how you can either become a dancer at TM Ballroom Dance Studio or join Ricci's dietitian program over at Denver's Dancing Dietitian, links are in the description box below. As always, I've been Samantha, your host with Love.Live.Dance. You can follow the Ballroom Chat podcast on Instagram and Facebook at Ballroom Chat. You can also support us on Patreon. Just find the Ballroom Chat Patreon page where we post exclusive clips, post-interview with our guests. There's one from Ricci-Lee and Todd's conversation today over there as well. If you have not already done so, please do make sure that you hit the subscribe button, follow button, like button, whatever the proper button is for the platform that you are listening or watching the podcast on. And as always, stay safe, stay positive, and I hope to see you dancing very soon.